If you want to find out how you can grow a tree, not kidding, in Photoshop, then you're in the right place. That's here in the Work Smarter Not Harder dojo with me, Tony Harmer, aka The Design Ninja. Alright, this image here, or while it's creepy enough as it is at the moment, it could be a bit more creepy by adding a tree, and that's exactly what we're going to do here. So I'm going to start this off by creating a brand new layer here in the stack, and then I'm going to switch to my pen tool, P for the pen tool. Now I'm actually using here the curvature pen tool, okay, but you could use the regular pen tool if you want your tree to be dead straight or if you just prefer it. The curvature pen tool, however, allows me to create curves simply and easily. So I'm just going to undo that here and now start off by clicking down at the bottom here, and then I'm just going to move up slightly because I want my tree to have a slight bend to it, and then I'll click at the top here. Now I can adjust this without switching tools using the curvature pen tool like so, just to change this out a little bit. There you go, a nice spooky bend to this path. What I then need to do is to go to the filter menu, come down to render and choose tree. Now, if you don't have an active path, this won't work. Okay, it needs an active path to work to. So if I choose tree, I then get this tree dialog. And from here, I can choose from a range of different trees. There's plenty to play with. So let's go ahead, and if I choose maybe something like this Robinia tree just here. Now you can change the light direction around the tree. So moving it left to right will change the direction of the light. My leaves currently are set to 0, but I'm just going to push those up here to a higher number than 0. And you can see leaves starting to appear. You can also change the size of the leaves as well if you want. The height of the branches. So if you want to change those, you can do all of that. You can see there that the branches are appearing much further up, but towards the middle, you can see the branches appearing from the middle. You can also change the thickness of that. Okay, so you'll see the trunk will change at the same time. And if you want to, you can even choose a different sort of leaf to go with it. There's a whole bunch of different leaves that you could choose here if you want to mix this up for kind of a fantasy illustration or something like that. Or you can accept the default leaves for that tree type if you like. Okay, so I'm going to choose a different kind of tree just here. I think I'm going to go with this. I'm going to try and say that. I think it's Ficus microcarpa. Let's give that a go. Who knows? Wow, that's one of those sort of old Jurassic style trees, huh? Let's take the leaves down from that. Ooh, nice spiny branches there. Let's change the light direction so it's more or less dull and in the middle. Here, we don't need anything with the leaves size. Let's change the branch height there. Let's bring them down like so. And we'll change that thickness. Okay, we do have some other options in the advanced section here where you can change the custom color for leaves or indeed for the branches. Let's just do that. Let's change that to something that's much more grey. So I'm just going to bring this into the middle here like so. Okay, so I can change out that color and you see the tree changes as well. You can also change the shading methods for things such as the leaves and the branches as well to keep them nice and flat if you wanted to. There you go. That way you get, of course, a tree shape. Once you're done, you just simply hit OK, and the tree will be generated, okay, along the path. And hopefully you can see there how the trunk is following the line of that path. Now I no longer need the path, so what I'm going to do is just delete that, okay, from the stack just there. And of course I'd need to do some other things here as well, such as add a layer mask so that I could go ahead and get a brush, okay, and make sure that I'm painting with black. I'm just going to change the size of my brush. I'm going to hold down Control and Option on a Mac, that would be Alt right drag on Windows. Just to change the size of that, I want that nice and big, and I'm going to drag upwards here to change the hardness. Okay, you can see how that's working. So I've got a nice soft brush there, and then I'll just start brushing underneath it just to go ahead and get that so it blends a little bit more into the grass. Now, what you could do, of course, is find a brush that has that sort of property, or even use something with a bit of spatter here, for example, to go ahead and kind of brush in small pieces of grass just there. In fact, if you wanted to zoom in here and change the size of the brush, make that super, super small and soft, there's nothing to stop you just adding the odd streak in there. However, I'd do that if I had pressure sensitivity turned on, so that way I would get a varied kind of stroke there as well. And that just adds to the overall illusion. The other thing you might want to do, just to make it blend slightly more with the background, would be to change the color. You could do that in a number of different ways. You might add, for example, an adjustment for hue and saturation. Just there, you could then go ahead and use the on image editing there, although as it's on a single layer, don't need to worry about that. And of course, clip it to the layer beneath. That means it won't affect the grass underneath. If I turn this off and change the hue there like so, you can see while that's super fantasy brilliant, it's not exactly what we want. So if I undo that, turn on the clipping, and then start to change the hue color, it's only going to affect the actual tree itself. And it's a matter of your own personal preference for how far you actually take that and how saturated or not it becomes. You might even decide to drop just a shade of the lightness out of it. Again, it depends on what you're actually going for entirely. But what we need, of course, now with our tree in place is a shadow. So let's go ahead and add that. What we're going to do is we're going to go to our layers and we're going to create a duplicate of this layer. So I've got it selected here. I'm going to hold down Command because I'm on a Mac. That would be Control on Windows, and tap J to create a copy of that layer. And then I'm going to apply the layer mask. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to tap I to get the eyedropper tool, and I'm going to sample the green of this grass. I'm then going to go ahead and click on that foreground swatch here. Now, the opposite of green is magenta. So I'm actually going to move this up into that magenta range. It doesn't have to be super precise. Near enough will work. Okay, and hit OK to make that the foreground color. I'm then going to hold down Option and Shift. That would be Alt and Shift on Windows, and hit Backspace or Delete to fill that with that color. And you might just be able to see the fringes of that at the lighter areas. If I turn the layer off, okay, and then back on, there it is. So now we're going to distort this down into place. So Command T, Control T on Windows to access the transform. Okay, and what we could then do is we could go ahead and right click here and choose to distort the perspective to start off with, then drag these top handles out like so, because our shadow is going to fan out quite some way there. Then we'll right click and we'll just choose free transform and bring the top down like so. Actually, what we might do there, is just choose instead to do a warp. So I'm just undoing that. I'll go for warp just here. That way we can bring these handles down independently. So we can just go ahead and do that. Change the control handles here. The distortion doesn't really matter too much. This area here needs these handles shortened at the bottom. However, let's just do this. And of course I could have done this and indeed I'm wishing that I had done it in a number of different ways right now. So let's just change this handle here. We'll swap these two out because that's actually what needs to happen just there. So there we are. We've got a nicer appearance there now. Move the handles around a bit. Could have split these as well using the controls up here in the options bar, okay, or control strip, however you want to refer to it. Once you've got that down like so, okay, just hit return to apply it. And of course, bend that around however you want to bend it around. And then we're going to change the blend mode of this to multiply. Now you can hold down Shift and Option. So what you need first of all is the Move tool selected. Okay, hold down Shift and Option. That would be Shift Alt on Windows, and tap M to go into the multiply blending mode. Now just remember, you must have the Move tool selected to do that. Otherwise you'll just change the blending mode potentially of another tool, especially one of the painting tools. And once we've got that way, we need to, of course, change the opacity. Again, with the Move tool selected and that layer, we can do that by using the keyboard. So I'm going to go for 30% just here. That doesn't look too bad to me. Okay, so that's fine. And then we need to soften out this blur. Now I'm just going to transform this again here. I'm going to skew this just a little bit. You don't really need to do this, but I've just thought there's something else I'd like you to see here. So I'm just going to offset it just a little bit. There we go. Okay, good. I'll apply that. Now then, what I need to do, okay, is add some blur, because shadows aren't super sharp like this, especially as they fall away from the object that's creating the shadow. So I'm going to right click here and change this into a smart object. Reason for doing that is that I might actually change my mind about the transforms. And to be honest, it would have been a good idea to have done that slightly earlier as well. But I'm going to do it at this step because I'm going to go to the filter menu. I'm going to come down to the blur gallery and I'm going to use Tilt Shift. And this particular workspace opens. Now I'm going to dial in the maximum amount of my blur. So let's have a look at how that works. I'm going to drag this down like so. I'm actually going to go beneath the tree just there, just a little bit, because this is the transition area. Okay, this is where this will change. You can see that. Okay, sharpening and then softening. So it would be much sharper towards the base, but I can then bring this out or in as much as I desire, okay, to change that transition. There we go. If we hit OK, we've got our nice soft shadow from the tree. It's got a little bit of dimension to it, but of course we can see it looks more convincing because it's sharper at the base and then kind of fades out as it goes along. And that's it. We're done for now. That's how you grow a tree in Photoshop. And I'll see you next time here in the Work Smarter, Not Harder dojo. See ya.